We want to welcome you into this week's Weather Hangout, and we almost got the full gang. We also got to introduce, we got John back with us, and we also have meteorologist Diane Phillips. We also got one more. We got Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers right over there as well. We're going to bring him in right now. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing very well. Good to see you guys all. And we've got a very busy weather hangout that we're going to be talking about. The reason why, how does January thunderstorms sound to you three?
Better than snow.
Yeah,
unusual.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. I mean, at least for me, I definitely didn't expect to see at least covering thunderstorms this time of year. I thought always, snow coming up to Ohio at least.
Mother Nature's been throwing us some curveballs this winter, and that trend continues this week with our forecast. We haven't seen any measurable snow this whole month, but we are talking thunderstorms, possibly some strong to severe. Hard to believe.
We'll call it the clash of seasons because, John, you're going to be breaking down in a little bit where we stand kind of climatologically speaking, what we could expect perhaps with some snow and what are some changes and trends that we've seen over the past several years and what we might continue to see due to the respect with the change in our climate. And Diane, you and I are going to be breaking down this alert day. And Diane, what's tops on your list for when we're talking about the storm risk as we go forward coming into Thursday's storm chance?
Well, I'm glad that we are out ahead of this, of course, making sure everybody's ready and prepared, of course, giving you that advance notice. We talked about it even earlier today, and really kind of it's January, so we don't typically talk about thunderstorms. So now that we're out ahead of this, it hopefully doesn't catch too many folks off guard, so then they can be prepared and also be thinking ahead. Maybe some of those severe weather skills are a little bit rusty, so of course we can kind of highlight the threats of what you can expect, and then you can make sure that you have all those right things kind of in the forefront of your mind as we head into tomorrow. So the biggest thing is not being caught off guard. We don't want anybody to say, hey, I had no idea it's January and we're talking thunderstorms. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
And Matt, speaking of being prepared for this one, it's been a really interesting start to January so far. There has been strong storms, severe storms down south where you're very familiar with. And that in itself isn't all that unusual this time of the year. Parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana has even had some instances of some strong and severe storms and tornadoes. But we've had tornadoes already in the month of January in the state of Iowa and Illinois. Just been a very bizarre weather pattern, hasn't it?
Yeah, it surely has. And then, yeah, of course, we had that severe thunderstorm breakout, at least in Alabama last week. So they've seen at least two of them this winter. So it's been some definitely interesting weather this winter for us. And even for us right back here at home, it's been unseasonably warm as well, right? It
has been, and we're going to feel that spring feel. We appreciate everybody that is joining us right now, either on WTOL 11 Plus or on YouTube. And of course, if you are new to our weather hangouts, we're going to take a deep dive into some of the weather conditions that are going to be unfolding and also talk coming up a little bit later in this program about winter snowfall. Where's it gone and what are some of the trends that we are looking at? So we'll check in with you three coming up in just a little bit, but let's dive right into what we are looking at with this upcoming storm. Now, we're going to be very clear on this one. This is going to be for the potential of strong storms, possibly even strong or severe as we get into Thursday afternoon. So let's set the stage of what's going on. We've got a very powerful area of low pressure. Now, this one has come through the Four Corners region. It's riding the jet stream now into the southern tier of the United States, and it's kicking up a hefty snowstorm across the front range of the Rockies up into the state of Nebraska, where they could come away with over a foot of heavy snow, and where we're drawing that warm Gulf of Mexico moisture out, and that jet stream is overlying some of that warm, humid air. We've got the risk of strong and severe storms that is going to be happening for today here on our Wednesday as we look at those storm threats across the Mississippi River Valley, anywhere from Memphis, Tennessee, down toward Jackson, Mississippi. But on the colder edge of this system, we've got winter storm warnings, something that we in northern Ohio, southern Michigan really haven't seen much of so far this winter season, and the potential here where this stripe of winter storm warnings extend from about Denver, Colorado, all the way to the UP of Michigan. Winter storm warnings where they could see over 12 inches of snow that will be possible. Clearly for us, though, we will be on the warmer side of this system here in northwest Ohio. With that, the increasing risk of any strong or severe storms. Here's going to be that outlook, and this is going to be for Thursday, January 19th, that risk of strong or severe storms across northern Ohio and into central and north central Ohio, and that elevated risk that has been identified by the Storm Prediction Center and anywhere from about Dayton up to about Wapakoneta through Lima, across northern Ohio through Mansfield. This does include parts of Findlay over toward Tiffin and in Erie and Huron County out towards Sandusky and Norwalk. So a decent portion of northwest Ohio is at least under a risk of some severe storms or the chance of some strong storms as we go through Thursday, January 19th. So let's talk maybe a little bit more in detail what's going on. So we're going to look at the jet stream aloft in the atmosphere, and these are the winds anywhere from about 25 to 30,000 feet. Often these are what drive storm systems, and we've got some energy that is now making its way out of the southern plains in the form of the jet stream, or those winds aloft in the atmosphere that, as we gauge those right now, about 125 to 150 miles per hour. Now, there is an impulse that's coming out of the southern plains that is showing us that those jet stream winds are going to be increasing as we go from Wednesday, January 18th into Thursday, January 19th. And that leading edge of that jet stream right here across northern Ohio as we get into Thursday, January 19th, is what's going to give us that upper level support in the atmosphere or higher wind shear aloft that is going to allow for the risk of some strong and severe storms. In addition to that, we get some sun that breaks out. Temperatures go surging into the 50s. We get that next ingredient, which is a little instability that may build through the atmosphere as we get into Thursday afternoon. So let's talk some important details once we get through some soaking rain that's going to come into the area. How much rain are we looking at? Could end up with a half an inch to an inch or more of total rainfall, and I do expect that's going to include some downpours. So what's all the timing of this one? And we're going to take you through this nice and slow in our hour-by-hour forecast. We're going to get soaked with rain tonight into tomorrow morning, and I expect that rain's going to come through mainly while you sleep Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And those morning showers, they're going to come to an end. Sun will begin to pop out by about mid-morning, and it will turn warmer very quickly. And we'll put a stop on the clock right around lunchtime, close to noon. And that's when we get into nearly full sunshine, and temperatures are going to go skyrocketing into the 50s. It's going to feel like a spring day, and that's what's going to destabilize the atmosphere for the potential of some strong storms. So let's put that timeline out. It's after 3 p.m. Quick moving storms. Gusty winds going to be one of the bigger threats with those storms. They're going to be coming out of Indiana, and these storms are going to have some very quick motion to them. They're going to be moving very rapidly as we get a little closer to dusk. Here's Thursday, again, January 19th, some strong storms that will be possible and clusters of storms moving across the I-75 corridor into north central Ohio as we go near and after dark of those storms. Then we'll be clearing the area as we go shortly after dark. We like to break down the impacts of what these storms could bring. Let's bring in meteorologist Diane Phillips. And Diane, very unusual, as we've been talking about, storms and the risk of severe storms in the month of January, something very rare that you and I have seldomly seen. What are the impacts that we need to know to stay safe and ahead of this storm system?
Yes, it's always the big question. So what's going to happen? What are we going to be experiencing? Right. And these thunderstorms, they're definitely going to kind of give you maybe some of those summer feelings. Some of the impacts that I'm going to be watching for are these summer features. Hail, that's going to be possible. One thing to think about, it's January. Cold air, though we haven't had very frigid temperatures, it's still sitting there high up in the atmosphere. So it's going to be easy to tap into that cold air. When we have that moisture in the cloud, it can definitely start to get those hailstones to form, meaning that we will be looking at the potential for small hail to be one factor and one impact. Another impact, though, is that we're going to be watching for these strong winds. These storms, they're going to be moving at a fast pace. And like you saw Chris diagnosing there, that we have that line of thunderstorms. So that's going to be that signal that we are going to have those wind gusts that are going to be a part of this storm. And finally, like I said, we have that cold air, funnel clouds. We have the environment that's going to be able to support funnel cloud development. And of course, a funnel cloud, I kind of want to explain, it doesn't quite reach the ground. It's just that funnel that extends downward from the cloud. And a tornado is when it's touching the ground. So let's kind of talk about, though, these impacts that we have. So wind gusts. And that's going to be our highest threat, as we could have some of those wind gusts that peak at around 50 miles per hour. So some strong winds is going to be right along with these fast-moving storms. Then that hail threat, we're looking, like I said, pea-size, half-inch size hail. Shouldn't be large stones that we have, but still, going to be a part and an impact of these storms that we could be working with during that after school time frame. Then that tornado threat, that's going to be on the low side because like I said, we're talking funnel clouds. That's when they don't touch the surface, but funnel clouds, if they do reach the ground, that's when it turns into a tornado. Of course, the WTOL 11 weather team will be monitoring for any contact that those funnel clouds make with the surface. Typically, when funnel clouds do turn into tornadoes, they typically spin to be around those weaker, lower levels. We're talking an EF0, EF1 tornado, which can still do damage, but they are still on the lower end as far as that severity threat. Now, the timing still of all of this, like we were looking at that hour by hour, we're talking 3 to 7 o'clock. So that's why it's going to be impactful for students after school. Maybe delay as far as those buses picking up the kids. Of course, it's a little bit safer to stay at school than having these storms out there. So of course, we'll be watching for those release times, and we'll continue to see even after school practice, getting out of work, and even maybe going to those dinner plans that you may have. Of course, these are all potential things that you are going to be working with as this line moves through. Again, it's fast moving, so it is going to pass on by. So have the WTOL 11 weather app monitoring as that line moves through. And of course, don't forget, once again, those impacts, we're going to be looking at those gusty winds, the hail potential, and also funnel clouds that could, if they make contact with the ground, turn into a weak tornado. But that will be an isolated chance that we'll be monitoring for Thursday afternoon. Of course, we'll continue to update and break down the storm on the WTOL 11 weather app, and of course on air and right here on WTOL 11 Plus in YouTube. So make sure you stay connected with the team. But we still have much more to talk about on this Weather Hangout. So as we transition and switch gears, let's look at this week's first weather fun fact.
Wow, more than 6,000 flashes of lightning each minute. That's an insane fact and truly makes you feel like the world is electric in a sense. Well, I'm here to break down exactly what we can at least experience as we go throughout the next couple of days at least, or at least for tomorrow, and how a cold air funnel can possibly form. That's what we could likely see as we go to tomorrow. So what those ingredients specifies, at least, you need those surface winds, and even at least that cold frontal air just right in front of the storm, but also you need those upper level winds that are at least on the strong side, and eventually you get this rotating column of air that will likely eventually rotate with those thunderstorm updrafts that will likely rotate that column of air up into the atmosphere, where you can see at least a narrow rotating column of air, and eventually it'll eventually form until we like to see a wall cloud, and some of you are at least familiar with that term. But after that, we'll see that rotating column of cold air continue, and it'll actually build downward. But a key factor with this, with the cold air funnel, is not necessarily at least a threat. If it doesn't necessarily reach the ground, that is, in fact, a cold air funnel cloud, and that isn't any threat to at least them. But of course, if it does, in fact, reach the ground, that could likely, of course, be known as a tornado, but not likely to see that tomorrow, as that tornado threat is, in fact, low as we go throughout our alert day as we head into Thursday. We'll have plenty more coming up in just a few minutes, but before that, enjoy this next weather fact.
Well, 1935, that was a historic January with hardly any snow on the ground during the heart of winter. Now, January statistically should be the snowiest month of the entire winter season. This year has been anything but snowy. And in fact, the WTOL 11 weather team, with all this talk of rain, thunderstorms, and even possibly severe weather, doesn't really sound like a winter forecast, more characteristic of spring or even summertime thunderstorms, as opposed to what you might see in January. So let's talk the running total of snow and rain this winter so far and where we stand. Winter snowfall still sits at a paltry 1.6 inches, and the majority of that happened in December, with a little bit adding on in November. We don't have any measurable snow, so that 1.6 comes exclusively from 0.4 inches of snow in November and 1.2 in December. We got that storm right before Christmas. So where do we stand on the winter as a whole? So far, we are over a foot below normal, 13.3 inches, less than average. January is the month when we're supposed to be getting a lot of big snows. However, this year has been anything but snowy, and we've gotten more rain than anything. Now, even our rainfall for the winter is below average. We've gotten a little over 3 inches of rainfall so far this winter, and that puts us at about 3/4 of an inch below average, 0.72 to be precise. It's been a dry winter to say the least, but a lot of our precipitation has come in the form of rainfall, as temperatures above freezing have been a lot more commonplace than those below freezing temperatures, hence why we've seen more precipitation coming from rain versus that snow. If January was to end today, it would go down as the least snowy on record. That weather fun fact detailed one of those historic Januaries that brought us only 3/10 of an inch of snow. Time will tell what the remaining 2 weeks has in store, but right now, all signs are pointing toward a dry January as the snowfall deficit continues. So far this January, just a trace of snow, and that includes 0 measurable snowfall. And as we had in our weather fun fact, only 3/10 of an inch came back in 35. So can we erase that deficit, or will we go down as the least snowy on record? Time will tell, but we're over halfway through January, and so far we're looking at more rain than anything in that WTOL 11 10-day forecast. If you're interested in more of the impacts on climate change on this lack of snow, tune in for Climate Friday newsletter. You can head to WTOL.com/email, and right here on YouTube and WTOL 11 Plus, we've got plenty more information and some scientific breakdowns on what might be causing this snowfall deficit, and are winters like this one getting more common in the future? That's what I'll answer this week and also in coming weeks in those editions of Climate Friday. So that's a look at our snowfall this winter, and we'll have more of that weather hangout coming up in just a bit.
John, we're gonna come in here.
Welcome.
Because we want to give you a hard time about the lack of snowfall. We figured we needed somebody to blame on this.
Although many folks would not consider it blame, but more gratitude for the lack of snow.
There could be some truth to that. Very interesting. Really want you to check out John's Climate Friday. He goes very in detail, puts a lot of time and effort into that, to breaking down what we've really noticed and what we've realized and what we can prove statistically with data and science on how our weather is changing in the future.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and it's a multifaceted issue. Of course, the La Nina winter plays a role, the jet stream plays a role, but climate change is having a very real impact. Winters are just warmer than they were, and oftentimes we find ourselves on that rain-snow line, and because of climate change, we're more on the rainy side of things versus the snowy side of things. And even with this severe weather system, it's interesting because it is going to bring snow to the upper Midwest, but it's so dynamic that it could bring severe weather and snow all from the same thing.
John's breaking the hearts of snow lovers.
I know. All the
Breaking my heart a
people
little bit.
You know, snow removal. They're like, John, we need the snow. So we'll have to work on that. We'll
To
get
each their
there.
own, you know.
We do notice some pattern changes, though, as we get into February. It perhaps does become more of a snowy month, at least to end winter. But what are you guys thinking when it changes, and how much are really willing to put on the line on this one,
So how
Matt
much
Willoughby?
are y'all willing to put it online? So this is called, I like to call this segment Weather Betting in
Okay.
Ohio.
Oh,
so
boy.
we got it for you, over under 1.5 inches of snow. So what do you think?
And this is by the end of January.
Is by the end of January,
Okay.
do you think we'll be under 1.5 or over 1.5? Place your bets now.
Well, what are we betting again?
What's the weather wager here, Matt?
I don't know.
A cold ice cream treat, maybe?
Yeah, that works perfectly. Yeah.
I could be down for that. I do think that we're going to sneak just over it. I think by the saving grace of the final few days of January, the pattern does look to be changing, and January has 31 days, right?
Yes, so
yeah.
that's still
So
some time.
fingers crossed it gives us that extra day or two to put us just over that one. But I do expect we'll likely see more snow in the month of February than the entire month of December and January combined. How about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of been the theme though lately with winter. We just do it all in February and then we call it done.
Get on to
So-
spring.
And then can we just get on to spring? Absolutely.
I'll be ready for that. So,
Well,
Diane?
if Chris has the over, I'll take the under.
Okay.
For those people who prefer spring weather over the snow, so we'll go with under 1.5 for me. What about you?
I'm going to go over.
Over?
I think over with the latest data.
Ooh, decisions.
It's a hard line. It's a hard
it
line
is,
that you've
it
set
is.
considering the trends we've been in.
You've got a Buckeye Sunday on the line, so you better think.
Okay. Oh, Buckeye Sunday. I'm gonna go under then. I'm gonna go under.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got
We're divided.
couple overs, couple unders.
We could exactly hit 1.5, and neither one of us will be right.
Yep. Then the bet just canceled.
House wins then.
Yeah.
Mother Nature wins.
Well, good. Hopefully we kept people in front of the game on the rare January severe weather risk. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we really appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to WTOL 11, you could do that. You're going to get information not only on John's Climate Friday, but on our weekly weather hangout, and so much more that's going to be coming. Matt, you want to give us a little tease ahead?
Yeah, so we'll be talking about next week where the best locations for warm vacation spots during the winter months. And we'll be breaking that down. Top fives coming up next week.
I've got a few good ones in mind.
Oh, man.
Does it mean we get to go test them?
Yes. Ice cream. Buckeye ice cream is available with ice cream.
We'll test the ice cream, not the vacation spots. Fair enough on that one. Well, we've got the whole squad here gathered for you, and of course, meteorologist Ryan Weekman as well. We're past his bedtime hours, so we appreciate you joining us, though. We've got meteorologist Matt Willoughby, meteorologist John Birchfield, and meteorologist Diane Phillips. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers. We wish you a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week for our Weather Hangout.